there are things that we need to be preparing for, that for sure we need to be preparing for. And if we don't, we are liable to, be like the ostrich, putting our head in the sand and getting caught in something that we don't want to get caught in. But for example, I was seeing on certain social media that certain parts of the infrastructure, in Ecuador was going to collapse, and it was going to pollute all the waters with oil, and nobody was going to have any drinking water, and the whole infrastructure was going to get shut down, and there's going to be rolling blackouts and no internet for 2-3 days at a time and no water. Now look, some of those things are already happening in parts of Ecuador, unbeknownst to a lot of people that watch the puppet shows, Rams, Retire Abroad, media and magazine, the puppet show channels. Unbeknown to them, a lot of this stuff is happening, but a lot of these people are just reading the mainstream articles about the glass of wine and the 80-degree weather, the perfect weather, and how wonderful it is, and all this other stuff is just swept under the rug, and nobody hears about it except for those that do their due diligence, like us. Hey there, welcome to Frank and Angie's Retire Early Lifestyle at Home or Abroad. Yes, I'm still in my office. Just wanted you to know that I am still here, and I just have more than one window, and this is the window today. So yeah, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people, a lot of content, and if you listen to all this content, it's like you've got people saying and thinking they got to get out of America if things are getting really bad. And when will they be bad enough for you to decide to leave America? Because America is falling off a cliff, and I'm not saying there aren't bad things happening, and it seems that history plays out in cycles for some reason, that I guess if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. That's why. And we live in an age when, as previously stated, it's really easy to rewrite history and make it sound like whatever you want, thanks to the digital age. Guess what? We can all be creators, and guess what that means? It means you can't trust what you're reading. Yeah, America's fallen off a cliff. Get out while you can. Well, I don't know how many people do the history on some of these places that they go to. For example, Chile was a dictatorship just in the 80s. It's not a laughing matter. I mean, it just wasn't that long ago, and it wasn't that long ago that they came out of that, and then in 2000, it was being heavily promoted by a segment of the RAM, Retire Abroad Media and Magazine, and of course all of that promotion came to a total standstill now, and now in 2020, our contacts there tell us that Chile has fallen completely. It's getting ready to completely fall. The whole constitution is getting scrapped and rewritten, and it's back to communism and this kind of thing. So their freedom barely survived, maybe 15, 20 years, I don't know, something like that. And so what that tells us is that the minds of the people have everything to do with the scope of liberty in the land. And so yeah, we have to be careful what information we believe, and what our children are being taught. Ancient wisdom states that we need to be teaching our children morning, noon, and night the wisdom of the ancients. So, ask yourself, is that happening? Because if it's not happening and you're sending your kids, to be taught from strangers, then, people ask. I see people on social media asking these kinds of questions. That's why I mention it. I see people saying, things like it's like people are just now opening their eyes. They're just now coming to understand a lot of things that, through the grace of God, we have come to understand for many years already. And they're asking questions like, why send our kids to school, or why go to university when they're just going to turn out communists? Yeah, right. Where have you been? Right. Looks like we've been ignoring ancient wisdom. There's a rumor going around that there's an article telling people to kill their pets now because, you know, they take too much carbon and it's hard on the earth and this kind of thing. And so you just, I don't know. Does anybody believe this stuff? It's like, look, the earth's renewable. You just have to be observant. Take a look. You see that? There's the ocean, and then the water evaporates. It goes into the sky. It becomes clouds. Then the clouds, the wind comes, it blows the clouds over there, and then they evaporate and it rains. And so you get unsalty, clean, distilled water. And so it recycles. The earth recycles. Our job is to take care of it as stewards. And with just like any, do I dare call it a lie? Just like any lie, any really good lie, the bigger the lie, the better. And also, if there's some truth to it. So there needs to be some truth to it, and then it needs to be as big as possible. And so I'm not here to tell you that there isn't some truth in some of these headlines and some of these conversations or some of these articles or content, whatever. But that's just it. It's not everything there is to know. So, but yeah, the decline of America. I mean, things go in cycles. Lots of things are in decline. You know, you get a fruit tree that bears fruit. You know, in the spring it puts out new leaves. In the summer it gives you the fruit. In the fall it's in decline. It loses its leaves and then it goes dormant, you know. And then the cycle happens again. So, you know, things go in cycles. And, I mean, you had old order Amish that back in 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed and the income tax was passed in the United States for the first time in the history of the United States, they got on their horses and took off. They took off and left America. America was declining. This was the beginning of the decline. According to them, they took off and went to South America. And they went out into the woods in South America and have been there ever since. And so it's just I mean, I'm not minimizing issues, and I'm not saying things haven't become more aggravated in many ways. And yet a place like America is so large. Fortunately, there are just so many opportunities to be in different places. And for example, it's historical. I mean, you had in Germany, you had East Germany and West Germany. And it's interesting that they existed that way, separate. And then the European Union came along and somebody thought it was a great idea to go ahead and reunite once again because, hey, it's peaceful time now, right? But now look, now that they're all united under the umbrella of the European Union, now it's like, oops, whose idea was this? Why did we reunite again once again? And so things go in cycles, and so it is. There is also the principle of worrying about things, and I'm not trying to minimize. It's just that there are things that we need to be preparing for, that for sure we need to be preparing for. And if we don't, we are liable to, you know, be like the ostrich, putting our head in the sand and getting caught in something that we don't want to get caught in. But a lot of this stuff, for example, you know, I was seeing on certain social media that certain parts of the infrastructure, you know, in Ecuador was going to collapse, and you know, it was going to pollute all the waters with oil, and nobody was going to have any drinking water, and the whole infrastructure was going to get shut down, and it's going to be rolling blackouts and no internet for 2-3 days at a time and no water. Now look, some of those things are already happening in parts of Ecuador, unbeknownst to a lot of people that watch the what do you call them? Puppet shows. Rams, Retire Abroad, Media and Magazine, the puppet show channels. Unbeknown to them, a lot of this stuff is happening, but you know, a lot of these people are just reading the mainstream articles about the glass of wine and the 80-degree weather, the perfect weather, you know, and how wonderful it is, and you know, all this other stuff is just swept under the rug, and nobody hears about it except for those that do their due diligence, like us, and those that are in the membership area, that we show people how to get the scoop on everything, among other things. So yeah, a lot of that stuff was already happening, but it was going to be to a greater magnitude of calamity, and it was imminent. It was going to happen, you know, in a few months, and it hasn't happened. It's been like a year, and it was going to happen within, you know, the next few months. Now, could it happen next month? Could it happen next year? It could. You know, certain parts of the infrastructure could collapse because of certain things that are imminent, that are collapsing, and this kind of thing. It still could happen. Would it be smart to prepare? And yes, it would. I'm just saying, though, that a lot of this stuff that we read, it has a terminology. It's fear-mongering, and again, I don't really like to just paint something with one wide brush and call it all fear-mongering. Again, you know, there are things that you should be ready. But if every single little thing like that comes along, I'm not saying don't do anything. Be aware of it and be prepared. But, you know, understand that some of it may not actually even play out. But you should be prepared for, in the case that if it does play out. It's like when Mount Vesuvius exploded back in, what was it, 500 BC? I think it was 500 BC or AD. I don't remember which one, but Vesuvius exploded, and it took out a huge swath of the globe with it. I mean, it was a small portion of the globe, but as far as locally speaking, it was a huge portion, like all of southern Italy, you know, half or almost 3/4 of Eastern Europe, and huge parts of Russia were just totally blown away by this volcano. And when we were in Naples just a year and a half ago, which is right under the volcano there, they were talking about that the volcano was rumbling. And I looked into this, did my diligence as we do, and I said to myself, you know what, this thing, if this thing did blow, it would blow all of southern Italy. It doesn't matter what if you move from Naples to Croatia or something, it wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have helped. And so, like, if you know, you've got this idyllic retirement idea, you're going to go retire to Ecuador, you're going to move to the Galapagos Islands, you know, and then you find out that the whole Galapagos chain of islands is all volcanoes. That's how those islands exist. It's because they're volcanoes. You're surrounded. So moving from one island to the other, that's not going to help you. And so sometimes, in order to get out of the way, you really do have to go quite far. You just have to figure out exactly what's the risk. What is it that we're at risk of? You know, you have to be specific and say, what are we at risk of? And then outline what it is, and then outline how you would protect yourself or get out of the way, or both. Just to say that sometimes you can get out of the frying pan and go to into the oven, or from the oven to the fire. I always get those two confused. Into the frying pan. You know, you could have moved from Naples to Croatia and still got blown away. And so it is with a lot of the information nowadays on and the content that you view nowadays. You say, well, you can go here and you can go there, and yet the volcano, are you really getting out of the way? That's the question one has to ask themselves. And that's what I'd like the viewers today to think about. It's like Abraham had to go back and forth. He went back and forth. He went out here and he went over there, and maybe here, no, not quite. And he just took him a while to figure out right where the spot was that he was going to move and set his family in. And this right spot ended up being in a place where his beliefs were respected, where his relationship with God was respected. And that ended up being the place. And if you don't have that, then what you're really talking about is just deciding where you're going to have that boot stomp down your neck. Hope you got something out of that. Thanks for coming to the channel, and have a wonderful day.